Money's my religion. Let's put that right.
Okay.
Money's my religion. The black woman is my God.
That's why Donald Trump is sitting in the Oval Office.
And the black woman is my God.
Wrong. There was no argument to be made for what she said. Her remarks were uncivil, and it was inspiring hatred toward not just Trump, the Trump administration, and the people that support Donald Trump. So they were right to condemn her.
And the black woman is my God.
And when Donald Trump was running for president, famously, he said, "What do you have to lose?"
And he was correct. We had absolutely nothing to lose and everything to gain, and we are gaining it. People, am I black? I'm curious if I'm...
Money's my religion. Let's put that right.
Okay.
Money's my religion. The black woman is my God. And the black woman is my God.
Black people, am I black? I'm curious if I'm black.
And the black woman is my God.
People, am I black? I'm curious if I'm black.
Thank you for joining. This is Nahesu Nagnegas L in Sacramento on the corner of Alhambra and Granada, so you know what's going down. It is the time of the hour, the haru of today. And there are some requests for me to comment on some of the things that are going on. I would like to talk about, just in generality, that we see ourselves as melanated people having to face two situations here. You're either going to do the Kanye thing, or you're going to stay true to your roots of your ancestral heritage. Many people want to divert the subject of being indigenous or quote unquote black, and because you want to fit in. Today's society has you seeing that it is prosperous to fit in and to go along using their currency and their jobs and the idealism of going to college to get a degree to be accepted. Once inside, you realize that you have compromised yourself.
That's why Donald Trump is sitting in the Oval Office.
And the black woman is my God.
Wrong. There was no argument to be made for what she said. Her remarks were uncivil, and it was inspiring hatred toward not just Trump, the Trump administration, and the people that support Donald Trump. So they were right to condemn her.
And the black woman is my God.
And when Donald Trump was running for president, famously, he said, "What do you have to lose?"
And he was correct. We had absolutely nothing to lose and everything to gain, and we are gaining it. People, am I black? I'm curious if I'm black.
And the idealism of going to college to get a degree to be accepted. Once inside, you realize that you have compromised yourself. Individuals tend to take on the ideology of their parents and tend to follow that form and function. It is function that precedes form, or is it form that precedes function? Nevertheless, there's a consciousness within our community of we having celebrities and individuals even portraying that other celebrities are coons while they themselves have compromised their own integrity in trying to speak for our own people. What I am trying to say to you guys today is it takes a sacrifice in order for you to be who you truly are indigenously. We have to hide our true professionalism, or within professionalism, our true identity of who we are. We're coming to a breaking point within America's society and a breaking point within ourselves of compromising our true identity in being indigenous or being pro-black or pro-Moorish or pro-Native American or even pro-Mexican. It's kind of hiding in the closet. And now that the gay rights are able to come out and be who they are, I think it's time, since those rights have been piggybacked off of civil rights, that we as people who embrace African inheritance or culture and people who embrace indigenous culture or Moorish culture to be able to freely express who we are. But we have news anchors, we have celebrities.
People, am I black? I'm curious if I'm black. People, am I black? I'm curious if I'm black.
Celebrities who continue to be the voice of our people, but the people on the grassroots who have the history and who have the definitions to define society and to critically analyze the mentality of our society will never get the opportunity to speak on our behalf. So therefore, I am grateful for the social media outlets for providing us a resource to do so. It has come to the point to where I see a lot of black men and black women having issues with their counterparts that they have chosen that do not face the same ideology of embracing their blackness. We have black men with white women who are having to pet their wives to sleep and cannot do what they want to do in their own function and form because they are subjugated to comply to the demands of their spouse, and vice versa. We even have black individuals who are, they say that they're black, but they're functioning in a European capacity. And they are doing the biddings of the Europeans, just like the first churchgoers and the first churches that were established, and we embraced that as a form of spirituality, but the functionality was destructive to our minds and our divine being. But we have a dichotomy here as we see Kanye West being exposed and exploited. Then we have Don, the anchor man, who also takes the opposing approach while he himself is married to a white man. And so therefore we don't get the true function of these forms of who we truly are because they're being guised and disguised. And what I'm trying to point out here is each individual is going to have to take within them the consciousness of who we are as a people and to stay true to this fighting white supremacy and white oppression, because it is not for humanity, it is for capitalism and it is for dominance and control. And we have individuals who have discredited their own blackness, let's just say.
The black woman is my God.
Am I black? I'm curious if I'm black.
Individuals who have discredited their own blackness, let's just say, to marry into something that they settled for while being subjugated to these principles and rules to appease their spouses. And then the children grow up to then take on the function and form of their parents, and then they may be mixed or what have you, not embracing their true indigenous spiritual self. To embrace your indigenous blackness and to embrace who you are is deeper than the form that we see here today that separates thought from spirit and makes us seem as we are individuals. We are not individuals, and we are divine. And individual is indivisible. And the whole idea that there's a difference between church and state, or God and state, within the temple of each man and government is a false dichotomy that we have believed in. So we see in today's materialistic world the opportunity to make our lives easier. Well, we are also living miserably internally, not fully expanding our spiritual divine self from the compromisation of physical relief. So the only purpose I'm saying to this is that we are seeing today the form of something that looks like blackness, but it's functioning again in the sense of European suppression. And there are Europeans who are more cognitive and more aware of and more black than some black people. The purpose of our being is to, in our society, I would like to see, is to function in uniformity where all people do not separate the God from within and able to function so that there is not a cognitive dissonance of prayer or meditation, but their spirituality is manifested in their reality. And that is the dichotomy that we see today with capitalism and capitalistic society. So, with that said, this is Nehesu Nagnegas L, just trying to point out what the hell is really going on.
Money's my religion. Let's put that right.
Okay.
Money's my religion. The black woman is my God.
People, am I black? I'm curious if I'm black.
Yes.
People, am I black? I'm curious if I'm people. Am I black? I'm curious if I'm people. Am I black? I'm curious if I'm people. Am I black? I'm curious if I'm
the word name for adjective. Black is an adjective, and we broke it down last time.
And adjectives describes a person, place, or thing. So
it means to shine, flash, burn, to bleach something out. One, and then we talked about that's where the word black would be in the Black's Law Dictionary. Black, the word black or black man, black person does not exist. Next, that's where it would be in the dictionary. So then we look at, we don't have black, but we see that we are under color, and color is called dark. If you look at the bottom one, it says color of dark skin showing the presence of Negro blood. Hence, it is equivalent to the African descent or percentage. Okay. And we see that black, colored means to cover up, to color up something that's not real, to falsify something, to disguise something,
or conceal.
To conceal
lack of reality.
Let's go. So you have lack of realities, and they put you under. You see that right there, the second arrow. They put you dark color skin. They put you under a false reality. Next slide. I mean, this is too deep.
Which is distinguished from that which is real.
Right on. So they make it clear to whom exactly the term free white person applies to, and we see here free white persons are of African descent. Let's go to the next slide. We're just hitting it up. We touched about this before. And we see here, it doesn't mean Caucasian race, but we can see there further, also Moors are free white people. So why does this all matter? We're searching for more.
People, am I black? I'm curious if I'm black.
And the black woman is my God.
That's why Donald Trump is sitting in the Oval Office.
And the black woman is my God.
And when Donald Trump was running for president, famously, he said, what do you have to lose?
And he was correct. We had absolutely nothing to lose and everything to gain, and we are gaining it. People, am I black? I'm curious if I'm black.
And the black woman is my God.
Can you hear me? Hello and welcome to another episode of Searching for More. I am your host, Nehesu Nagnegas L, and today we are going to be talking about the black on black violence in our civil politics and our politics. And today we have a wonderful host who's been all around the country from the same spot on all these different networks to join us today in discussing and reviewing some and have an analytical critique of other individuals and their takes on what we call black. That's how they identify us as black. I know we all know we're indigenous, Paleo-American, Moors, and that's how I look at it. And so we're going to take a look at it. We have Aseer, the Duke of Teirs, in the building. Welcome to our show, Searching for More, Duke of Teirs. Thank you again for joining us for another episode of Searching for More. Yes, I can hear you very well, sir. And thank you again. I don't know if you had an opportunity to listen to the introduction or not.
I really appreciate it, man. And thank you for having me again on the program.
Man, the pleasure's all mine, brother. The pleasure's all mine because I know that you are truly, taking your time out and to help our people out and to by lending your knowledge and expertise. So I know that I'm grateful because I know that you've read a lot of books and you have a lot of understanding that most definitely I haven't received. And there's nothing better but then to share that with the individuals, with our community, and helping us, helping those people who are searching for more in their life. And I'm just glad that this platform is here and that you are willing to be on it, my brother. Thank you so much again, my man. Yeah, man. So. Right on, man. It sounds like you cleaning the house and doing a podcast. That's how well, you know what I'm saying, so knowledgeable you are.
You already know.
Vacuuming and everything, doing dishes, putting kids to bed, everything, or children to bed while you, you know what I'm saying, over here dropping knowledge, man. It's like first nature, ancestral DNA, inheritance of knowledge that you're spreading. Yeah, today's topic, my man. Is there a clicking on? You hear a clicking? Or is that just me? Oh, that's my headphones. Today we want to talk about, just get into what your initial response is. I don't know if you got a chance to listen to the introduction, but a while back I kind of talked about this whole thing. I believe that in my mind's eye, that there is a civil war amongst us, and that, thank goodness for, Facebook, YouTube, and just a lot of active Moors, a lot of active brothers and sisters who don't identify as being Moors, getting their voice out. And what I do see, especially in recap of this last midterm election, there was the controversy of voting, not voting, and a whole bunch of things. And, and that's why I was playing polite, saying my religion is money's my religion, but black women is my God. Then we had Candace Owens there, supporting Trump in the office. And so what I would like to help do is help kind of orchestrate and kind of expose the ideology of what black is, because it doesn't seem to be homogeneous in any ways. And so we had some clips on the show today to talk about black civil rights, not civil rights, but the black civil war that we can kind of see in the dichotomy of voices that are coming out in the mainstream media. And so what are your initial thoughts about the various voices regarding those people who are representing and being out there in public for us?
I think that anyone that in 2018, the so-called Gregorian calendar year, 2018, we're dealing with a pseudo-homogenous culture of so-called black people, so-called white people, so-called Spanish people, and a lot of different people who identify with things outside of nationality. So whenever you're dealing with a race of people or a group of people who identify with themselves outside of the national identity, we're dealing with some sort of colorable fiction. For instance, there's no place for Africa, yet people from the continent that we refer to as Africa refer to as that. So in the same context, there's no place called America, yet there is a place called America on paper. And depending upon your position within that place, it's referred to as America. Allows you to use benefit or the liability from being associated with that. So when you're talking about so-called people who identify themselves as a black demographic or a minority or colored or Democrats or Republicans, right? In the modern context, in the context of definitions of these words post-1933, we're dealing with people that are dealing with striving, trying to establish their own pseudo-independence within a system that was very set up. It's the opposite. You understand what I'm saying? So anything that somebody like Candace Owens, so her perspective is Democrats put us in this position. That's that.
It's kind of hard to hear you, brother. It's kind of hard
to
hear
me.
Kind of. Are you driving? Are you driving? I mean, are you traveling, or is that a train?
Nah, let me see. I had headphones in. Let me see if I could do it.
Okay, you run some errands now, huh? Okay, smooth.
Is this better?
Yeah, that's a lot better, my brother. That's way better, because I don't know if he was in the car, but yeah, I'm
cool.
kind of trying to follow you. It went in and out, and it just sounded like you were talking about that.
So to recap what I was saying, what I'm saying is so-called anybody that's associating themselves or identifying themselves with anything outside of a nationality, right, is dealing with some sort of corporate agenda, whether they know it or not, or whether they are direct participants of it or not, is immaterial. If they are associating themselves outside of a nationality, that means that they are working with some sort of corporate entity.
And it also means that
they're on behalf of a corporate entity.
Correct, yeah, because we know that they're also the estate of that document that they created, which puts them in that jurisdiction. which then we
Right.
know by the 13th Amendment, 12th section, that says that nobody of
Yes.
African descent could be part of the United States. And so
Yes.
therefore they are playing right into their rules and jurisdictions, and kind of like,
Yes.
like I don't know if you saw the movie, the Hate You Give, but
Yes.
Common was in there. He goes, what would you, the lady, his niece was talking to him, and he said, what would you do if you saw a white, black guy? Would you say, raise your hands again? Would you shoot? He goes, I'll shoot. What about a white person? He goes, I'll do the opposite, because
Right.
it sounds like they're buying into a narrative and an ideology.
Yeah, we have to understand that the concept of the white person was built upon something that has been historically referred to as the Bacon's Rebellion. And in that Bacon's Rebellion, you had a Moor who was able to rally the indentured servant Moors and the white male slaves on the so-called plantations in a place we refer to as Edom, that we now today call Virginia. And they put so much pressure on the colonial body that they realized that in having poor white slaves and so-called indentured Moors, now redesignated as freemen or free Negroes or free blacks or Indians, you see, that they needed to find a way to stop that unity, because they both rebelled against the Christian colonial system. It started off that they banged on the indigenous so-called Indians, who themselves were Moors, who were still receiving aspects of tribute from the British. And so they looked at them like they was blocking their freedom, but eventually they all worked together.
Yeah.
And so the English powers at the time decided that the only way to make sure was to give the white males a little more freedom than the so-called black ones that were subject to the crown in those dominions. And so they started to stipulate that whether the Moors were free or not, they couldn't own Christian slaves. And if white women if they married anybody other than an Englishman or Caucasoid type or phenotype person, that their babies would be put into bondage and stuff. So,
and that was a good
and
strategic movement, for them too, because that European pool was starting to dry up of slaves, and so the anti-misogynistic pool 1621 kind of.
But at the time that we're speaking of slaves, the predominant people that are being enslaved at this time are the people that we refer to as Caucasian.
Yes, sir.
Those Moors who were displaced after the surrender of Granada, 1492, and then where Montezuma surrendered and worked with Cortez to then do what he did here in South America. That's what ushered them into establishing these pseudo or fake things that they now call races to help break up the homogenous aspect, as you said, of the true Asiatics and original peoples that was already here. You know what I mean? Like, if we want to take it farther past the Olmecs, we get into a people called the Harala Supe. And they, when you see the depictions of them, are all in feathers and turbans and all of this. And they now are saying predate even the Olmecs. So there's most likely people before them that did the same thing. So when we speak of ourselves as being indigenous to America, that's true, but we're really indigenous to the earth itself.
Right,
there's no
real.
place on the planet you can't find us. So the problem now is, out of all the varying clans of who we are, who's the most awakened to who they are enough to be able to bring legal or lawful claim to the effect of, to take advantage of the internal war that's going on. So because most black people are still, so-called black people are still reared under the auspices of civil rights,
right?
They believe that voting is an option for them.
And that's exactly what we're going to get in tonight. I have pulled out, kind of loud myself. I kind of pulled out some clips that I hope that we have the audio for you to hear as we talk about this. And I want to specifically, as an indigenous American, I really want to highlight and show the identity of how we are bought into the system and how we do not, we have a dichotomy of getting into voting or not voting. We had some brothers talk, come at the conscious community, and we have some clips from Boyce Watkins. We have 6 clips here, and I kind of want to break apart this understanding of what black is, because it's not homogeneous. Because Brother Polite said, money's my religion, but the black woman's my God. But Candace Owens is supporting Trump. So does that make that Candace Owens his God? You know what I'm saying? And this idealism of a black woman. And then we had Umar Johnson talk about a few things about being a black, not supporting, you have to marry a black woman in order to support the movement. And even though Frederick Douglass, he hammers Frederick Douglass. And so,
Right.
we're going to look into that.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say we're going to look into this because, we got a lot of conflicting ideas that are leading. And I think that brothers like you, and I, hopefully, but just one voice, but just to be able to bring to the general public and this notion to the other individuals who hasn't studied what we studied, don't know who they are because they haven't studied self or know about Drew Ali, to kind of see that this Democratic left wing, right wing thing is just another ploy that still has not worked, because we were not supposed to be part of their government, as you mentioned, and that we are the true inheritors, as you pointed out, through the Olmecs and original, and things. So what I want to have here is I have a quick clip. How long is this one? 3 minutes. 3-minute clip. 4-minute clip of Boyce Watkins real quick. And I want us to kind of tonight just not, kind of take it easy and just, I want to hear your perspective on the things that the people, our people, black or whatever they claim themselves, that are at the forefront of some of the social media in leading our people.
Not to cut your wisdom, God, like to save you even time, like the thing that all of these people that you're talking about have in common is that they have their agenda. You understand?
Yes, sir.
May be right and exact, may be right. You understand? But the thing is, when you're dealing in the real world and you're dealing with real diplomacy and international politics and things like statecraft, okay? In order for you to partake in the full aspects of that, you have to have a nationality. You understand? So regards to what comments that you play or don't play or whatever they say or don't say, as great as it may be, it is only going to be able to be accessed through a domestic aspect because of the fact the international viewpoint is that so-called black people, although oppressed, are still willing participants within the social structure of the oppression because they have not proclaimed their nationality. I know this because I have traveled to different countries and spoken to different people about the true Moorish Empire, not all of this YouTube stuff. I'm talking about the stuff that's on paper and scrolls and books over there that talk about us over here. Okay? But the problem is, like when Katrina went down, right? That was almost a last-ditch effort where the United States was trying to test the resolve of the indigenous people, in the sense that the empress had put in a mandate that they had to get off the land at a certain time, and it was put through by Bush. That's legal. That's legal fact. You can look that up and see that Daddy Bush, Daddy Skull and Bones, Daddy CIA okayed it. Not only okayed it, accepted it and put it in. But what happened was, towards the end of the time when it was supposed to get off, the Katrina thing goes down. And now the United States is trying to see if those people who are claiming to have their own thing popping have the ability to protect and secure their own people. And so because they couldn't, when the international people started sending aid or wanting to send aid, they had no direct people to send that aid to. So therefore, the United States stepping in as the quasi-custodian of these people referred to them as what? If you remember.
The custodians of this place? Indigenous inhabitants?
Of the people in Katrina. They referred to them as refugees.
Refugees, correct, yes.
So that means if you are a refugee, that means that you are coming from another government. That shows you that the Washington thing went through, but because the Washington power structure, infrastructure was infiltrated and messed up, you see what I'm saying? They weren't able to establish something for their own people in the form of an attack, because the Katrina thing was an attack. Just like these California fire things, these are so-called attacks to move people out through forced migration. But the problem is, Black people do not have an identifying nation that they are identifying with. You understand? So what happens is nobody. So if they want to, so somebody right now said, "Look, I want to give a check for $10 trillion to the Black people. What name I'm gonna write the check out to? What you gonna say?"
And
there's people that's ready to do that.
States. Right.
I've met niggas that's ready to do that. And they say, yeah, but like, I want to help everybody. But in that, well, I can't write a check to the Black nation. There's no such thing. I can't write a check to African America. There's no such thing.
Right.
And then if I write a check to you as an individual citizen of the United States get that money, because you're saying you're under them.
Exactly.
But you were here before then. So how are you now trying to get me to vote within a system that I was existed in before? The only way that works is when you are dealing with Moors and you're dealing with what they call block votes, where, like, with the Prophet was trying to move legislation to get the Negroes to have certain things within the corporate jurisdiction. So what he did was he found somebody named Aseer the priest, and then he got him to basically run for office within that structure under the Republic side of the United States. And in the process of that, got the Moors, who are qualified electors. See, when you become a Moorish American, you become a qualified elector, meaning that you can elect. You are part of what they call the original so-called constituency, or what today they refer to as the electoral college. Right. You have the right of a block vote because you represent the original several states who are mandated under the Judiciary Act of 1782 that says, 1782 or 1789, it says whenever you come into the position to lay down whatever in their court, they have to change the venue of the court to serve you. But that don't work for niggas.
Right.
You understand?
Now, how does that work for me? Because I know that being myself within this movement, or attempted to be part of it, to contribute to knowing who I am, to raise my family in this manner, you know what I'm saying? It's about how to get access in order to that status. And I know everybody within this movement has been trying to figure that out, and it doesn't seem like that has been the case, you know, and that hasn't been the case. It has been a very difficult thing for, you know, because we have things that are on paper, then we have how real life is being laid out. And how real life is being laid out is that we are under the gun. And oftentimes it's like we battering back times in the New Testament, you know, where there's like Jesus talking about, or Yeshua, whatever one people call him, is talking about the letter of the law and the spirit of the law. And then we have the act, you know, because I know that You have policy and procedure, because if a procedure can also become part of the policy, because if you run a certain way and you're doing things a certain way, then that becomes the law, even though it's not written. And so the procedures that I happen to see out here, I'm not maybe not as traveled as you have or traveled, but out here,
Indeed,
everything that you're saying sounds great. And I've been, there's a few of us out here really pushing paperwork and standing up and doing certain things, but there's only a few of us. And it's irregardless, because we had a podcast with Adrian Ross, ex-NFL player, that people know who he is. They're denying his indigenous rights, and they accepted his emotion, but gave him a failure to appear on the day he gave a motion to dismiss the case, and then gave him a failure to appear. I mean, we just did this whole thing, and these individuals are practicing ideology, and that's kind of like what I really was trying, and that's it's kind of, when you say all that court stuff, and so I'm with that, but you live in a different sector of this Americas than I do, and that's frustrating for many people as Moors, trying to live our inheritance while not trying to sell out, trying to learn how to be entrepreneurs, but still put in the system, because I know I'm an educator, a vice principal, and I am within their system claiming. And my route went as I claimed my straw man through various routes with Toriano Bashango and Zephania Abraham, using equity law and so forth like that, and trying to distance myself from that straw man, but nonetheless they keep on coming after me as if I'm the straw man, regardless of what I put down on paper. And so that's the reality.
Well, it's all procedure, like how could I say it? In order to move on to something, you have to totally close out something else. So, like, there was a lot of Moors getting locked up because they was like good Moors, and they weren't wrong, but they were incorrect. So the devil used any little detail to trap you up. They were doing executive letters where they were listing themselves as the executor, right? The problem with that is that you're not the executor of the account that led to the birth certificate. Your mother and father is the executor, the executor and the executrix. And what they did was they signed you over to the state, and then the state stepped in as a secondary trustee.
Right.
And they're the ones who made money off of the afterbirth that we call the birth certificate.
Right. And even capturing all that, even doing all that paperwork. You know what I'm saying?
But listen what I'm saying. So what happens is little things like that to switch it up. But what happens is a clear delineation is made once the people are fired through the channels that's there to fire them. What Moors are doing is that they're using a lot of their own writs and a lot of their own things like that and mailing it to them, and then expecting them to adhere to that. When based on the Paperwork Act, the Paper Terrorism Act, things like that, they don't have to accept certain things. However, they have to accept their own documents. So if you style and do what you do or gotta do with the meat of what your demand or request or argument is, in the format that they have to accept, it goes through quicker.
Because they created.
See, we're playing defense, right? Like when you look at what the Prophet Nawuju Ali did, right? He didn't go in there with his own like paperwork with the flags and all that shit on it. He didn't do that. He went in there and whatever the paper was on the desk, he used that, right? And filled that out, right? And filed that to the point that we able to do all the stuff that we able to do today just with that. So when I realized that the channels for us to do what we need to do is already laid out within the system. We actually can work in harmony with that because we're the ones that they based it on. House Joint Resolution 331 say that they adapted everything from the Iroquois Confederacy. The Iroquois Confederacy or the Haudenosaunee Confederacy was under the great law of Guyanaskwa. Great law of Guyanaskwa is the great laws of Ma'at, the same thing. And that is basically the basis of the Bible and the Quran, you understand? And the Torah. So when they say they base it on that, they base it on us. So that means we are the Constitution. So when it says we're supposed to enforce it, we give it life by understanding our position with it. Like, we're talking about the Constitution, but we as Moors have the Constitution to us means something a little different. Constitution to us would represent the Articles of Association, the Articles of Confederation, the Bill of Rights, right? The Constitution, the Organic Constitution, and the Treaty of Peace and Friendship that sealed it all together. I had the actual Treaty of Peace and Friendship translated by a Lebanese translator, Lebanese UN decorated translator. And he translated that the word in the treaty, al-Moroccanos, when spoken from the Portuguese side, represents Moroccan. But then when it's translated from the Arabic side, it means American. So therefore, the term al-Moroccan, Moroccan, or American in the ancient context, back when the treaty was in force in its infancy, represented those of us that was already here, which were part of that so-called government.
Yeah, when George Washington recognizes that, you can even look at the Webster's dictionary that he already recognized that the indigenous terms was Americans, and they've taken our birthright by calling themselves Americans.
Right, and they did that by allowing or adopting foreign names and getting Moors to adopt foreign ways through things like the Moors Indian charity schools and the so-called Indian re-education camps. And all of these were set up at the same time the paper genocide was going, where they were redesignating all of the original tribes as Negro, Black, and Colored, and then launching assassination campaigns through organizations like the Sons of Liberty and the Pinkertons. They was plotting their own thing as our fellows. This guy was called the Professor. When you read Manly P. Hall's book about Washington, he talks about the Professor. And this guy, Professor, was a guy named Chaim Solomon. Chaim Solomon was a Moor who they also, he had another name they referred to him as, but he allegedly was descended from Francis Bacon. And his family was descended from the original Moors who had been Sephardim Moors who had got displaced at the fall of Granada and wound up in America by way of the West Indies and all that. But this aspect of the history, like, think about it. If they was to put the real aspect of our history in it, as well as everybody else's, in the context of where they are now, it would be a completely different world. You understand? Because people would see their direct contribution as to why things are where they are, and the least things that they feel they had no connection to had the most value.
That's deep right
and
there.
So
and
we have to negate that.
Yeah,
you know?
and I want
to have to negate that.
Right, they have to negate that, and I want to. So it doesn't look like we're gonna play these videos I wanted to talk to. I'll probably save some of these videos at a later time, audience, and that we.
I just want to save you some time, because in the end, like the brothers are speaking some real great knowledge, and that's great. But I'm from the perspective as somebody that's just the outside of here.
And that's what I was
talking to apathy.
Yeah, and that's what I was that's what I'm trying to hit. I'm trying to hit the level. I'm trying to bridge the gap between the level of where you're at with the individuals who are at the
and I'm not saying that they not doing it. I don't know what they doing.
No,
all I know is what
I don't know what they doing too, brother.
Where I'm at and the people that I'm dealing with or whatever, it's a different type of conversation, because I'm coming from the perspective of somebody that's accepted their nationality, and it's reflective on legal and lawful documentation that has been accepted by their country as that. So I wouldn't be able to be and do this if what the Prophet and the Moors who came before us, if that wasn't real, then I wouldn't be able. They wouldn't be acknowledging me.
Most definitely, 100%. And I think that's where we in the same sense that I see. That's why I was trying to get the show going. I knew that's where you stood, and I was hoping you would play ball with it a little bit and discuss, because there is, even within the black dichotomy, this, left wing, right wing jargon, which we ain't even playing that game in a position that we're coming from. But since we're not going to play that game on this show with you today, and we're going to stay within the paradigm and the understanding and the direction of the conversation that you have. I'm my joke with you, derailed. You know what I mean? but you bring up some very good points, and I have a question about when you were talking about the history in Washington, and there's been some speculation about if Washington is Washita, is that King George Washita who claimed our lands, who kind of took that over, and as they adopted, like I said, they adopted the Constitution of the Iroquois. So is that Washington Washita, and is that George Washington really George Washington, or is that really King George? And in
the research that I've done, right, by reading a lot of books, there was a book called Washington President, another book called Washington the Leader. They have all these different perspectives of these white writers, and then I also read about what black people wrote about it. You know what I'm saying? J.A. Rogers, Texan Race, made references and his lineage and stuff. And what I found was that the Washington, what we understand as Washington, comes from an old Saxon term. When we think of Europe and Europeans, because we've been indoctrinated and we've been grown, through roots and all this stuff, we believe that the word European means Caucasian person, or at the time that these things went down, the Caucasian race was the predominant race. That's not really what happened. What happened was you had a group of melanated people who were always in these places and who went on campaigns within various times of history to reclaim places that they let the people or whatever rock. So one misnomer is when they say that the Moors conquered Spain. Right? They said the Moors went into Spain in 7 AD and conquered all of Spain in Europe, right? Well, that's untrue, because there was no Spain at the time that the Moors did that. So the people that the Moors conquered were not Spaniards. They were Visigoths and Ostrogoths. You understand? Right. So this was Rome. So this was Latin-speaking people that were conquered by Queen
Elizabeth and Ferdinand. They weren't Spanish.
No, they were Roman.
They were Roman.
And their dialect, or the region that they had dominion over, was called Aragon or Castile. But they themselves at the time considered themselves Roman, because at the time the language of the Spanish court was French. You understand what I'm saying?
I do.
So Isabel and Ferdinand, we're talking about one family. The reason why you even have the Romans left is because when the Moors went up in there, they went so far up that there was one kingdom left, and that was called Astares or Astarte or something like that. And because the Moors we at the time valued valor and the ability to fight, when there's no hope, that type of stuff, chivalry, we allowed them to maintain that kingdom. And so from that little one kingdom, they were able to establish 3 other kingdoms. So from Astarte, we get Castile, and then Navarre, and then Aragon, and then I always forget the last one. But from those 4 kingdoms, that would constitute what became the Spanish, the Spanish Empire. The Spanish Empire wasn't consecrated as a kingdom until 1497. Think about that. So that means from 7 AD all the way up to 1492. That was Rome. And we transformed it.
Yeah, that's real talk.
We transformed it into a whole nother region, a whole nother aspect where it was paradise. But why did the Moors fall? Because we was fighting amongst ourselves. And while we fought them, we would do shit like we would get mad at each other, and then we would hire one of these Aragonese or Castilians to come and fight as mercenaries in a war against each other. And so they realized very early that as much as we had power, we were still divided based on clanism and tribalism. And that's the same thing happening today. Me and you have a problem. Not me and you, but if the average Asiatic have problems, what they do, they call the police, right? That's Castile, Aragon, and they come and shut them down. That's wrong. So,
right. And that's the same thing happened over there with Tripoli, Tunis, because the British, what they would do is they'd make alliances with one, and then they would be able to fly their flags to the ports and stuff like that. But not other individuals, they didn't make a treaty with Tripoli, so therefore, or Grenada, whatever, not Grenada, but Morocco, and then we would end up, they would have to make those treaties and pay those tributes 3-4 times.
We was more gangster than that. We would go to one of them. And these was Asiatics we going to. These was like amalgamated Asiatics. The Franks, the Normans, the Basques, these type of people. All of these is basically different forms of Asiatics. You understand what I'm saying?
Right,
they just Christianized or whatever. But we're the phenotypical original Asiatics. So we come in and shut it down. So it gets to the point where we would have so much power that we would go to one of them, the French king would be like, look, you got to pay me 20,000 francs. Then the Bey of Algiers come and say, oh, you paying 20, you got to pay me 30. Then the El of Tripoli come and say, you paying him 30, you got to pay me 50. Then the Isle of Baghdad come and say, you got to pay me 70. You understand what I'm saying? So it gets to the point where this is where blackmail comes from. It gets to the point where you can't, what you going to do? You're going to have to fight back because we getting so much money off of these people that they got to be brutal to their own subjects, which is the white peasantry, you understand, which initiates the pseudo-white peasantry, right, to sell their daughters to the Beys, to the Days, so that way their daughters can have babies. And then the baby now becomes a part of the royal family, but now he's sympathetic to the peasantry, which is the white people situation. And because the Bey is already hating on his own phenotypical Asiatic people, he then put the amalgamated more, right, in power. Then he fall in love with the white peasant girl. Then they have a baby. Now the whole family white from that point on. You understand? Okay. That's how it goes.
Yes, and
look at Quincy Jones' family. that's it. That's it.
And that is true, man. That is true. And it seems like when you talked about, I may be diverting. We kind of, my mind kind of takes us some rabbit trails. I really appreciate the audience and for you to going along with this. When we talk about like Manny P. Hall and the professor and the individuals that you spoke of, like that's why we have like the Lord of the Rings is about what, is about us. You know what I'm saying? There's one movie, there's always one movie. I can't remember the name of the movie where there was a Lord of the Rings type of character, looked like, I don't know, who's dark, whatever he was, but he ended up kind of siding with the other side, with these Europeans to help down these Dark Lords. And he ended up showing them sacred passages, kind of like 300. You know what I mean? You had that Quasimodo looking dude showing them.
Just like Darth Vader.
Right. So you have always have some individual who is a misfit, kind of like Michelenche when you talked about Montezuma. Do you always have one of these? Yeah.
How you doing, guys?
Go ahead, brother.
I'm sorry. Just like people may not know the story of him. Montezuma, although being a great king, was kind of a jerk, and because of that, he presided over one of the greatest empires in the world. But because he was so, as it was written by some of the friars and those people at that time, it was written that when Cortez and them showed up, he was at a time where he was on sort of a political decline. So he kind of brokered a deal with them to act like they was Quetzalcoatl. You understand? So that way the people would then get on. So then Cortez was like, oh, this nigga's grimy. So then he was like, word. So once he played along with it, he then seized Montezuma and then held him hostage.
Yeah.
And then from that point on, the rest is history. Then he let Pizarro know he could come over here and do the same thing. and they brought over all of the disease, right, through the syphilis, because they would have them have sex with the sheep, and usually the sheep. And then when they would come back, then when they would rape the women, they would give the women the syphilis, and then the women would pass it on to the husbands or whatever, and then the kids would be born with it. You see what I'm saying? And they would let that cure for a year, and then after the next year, that's when they would start the invasion, because half the population is already down and sick and all messed up. Same thing they doing now with AIDS. Same thing they doing now with you know what I'm saying, Ebola and all other shit.
It's real talk.
It's the same system. It's the Jesuit Society of Jesus, open friendly society. That's what they've been doing.
And what's crazy about that is when you bring in when we talk about that, then we get into later in history on the West Coast, the missions and how they were killing off the darker indigenous inhabitants. Because you go to San Jose State and you can see on their murals the natives, indigenous were dark skinned, like you see those natives. You see on paintings.
Everybody was dark skinned in the world up until 1492.
Right, and then what? Yeah, exactly. And then what ends up happening is now I find ironic, because I'm still going to bring it back to my talk, even though you derailed the whole conversation in a beautiful way, is that eventually what ended up happening is those people, those I'm going to call them Spanish and those Crusaders, ended up having sex with those females, and then the killing off the males, and now we have white-looking Mexicans with blue eyes and blonde hair, or what have you, coming up here. And that's why I think the biggest issue is with a lot of the United States saying, hey, you guys, we know who you were. You guys are the conquistadors from Spanish, whatever.
Right.
And a lot of the indigenous inhabitants today that say that they're Mexicans don't realize how amalgamated and how diverse the history was by being suppressed. Like, well, black people, quote unquote, black people and our Moorish indigenous inhabitants don't realize how that's how we have so much European bloods, because the slave plantations is broken down differently. So I find it ironic, back to my topic for the night, I find it ironic that the political environment is demonizing these what they call a caravan coming through to Mexico, from Mexico all the way up to what we call the United States, saying that they're bringing in all these diseases and so forth, which would be, it's kind of ironic in seeing that, because I had to point that out, because I see a lot of Mexican individuals, males and so forth, various background looking in their phenotype expression, but when you look at their DNA pool, when they start pulling up websites on Mexican DNA, they always leave out E1B1B or B1B1A. You know what I mean? Which are a lot of the indigenous inhabitants. Which E1B1B are the Barbers. Or also in the Jewish Encyclopedia will tell you that those Berbers are the oldest Jews that we know to exist in the Jewish Encyclopedia. And so when we trace back ourselves, and then we look at the other texts of who we are as E1B1B, we see that those are also Moors, which are Native Americans. So it just seems that we were a part of everything, being the Moors, Christians, and being the original Jews on here. And I just had to bring up a current political point on the irony of of Montezuma and what he did, the conquistadors, and now today where we have political movement into places where we originally inhabited that they're trying to keep out, because they've created a vacuum for us for indigenous people to be attracted to. So I just think that you just brought up a point that I just wanted to share right there. I thought was very ironic in how history kind of follows in circles.
It's wrong. Montezuma was to South America what Aseer and Boabdil were to España and Granada. They were both selfish monarchs or Moors who sold out their empire. And that is a lesson, learned for us, because that ushered in eras of forced denationalization and willing denial of your individuality, to the point that you would literally buy creams to look other than yourself, or contacts, or wigs, or whatever. Like, you can't say that you love yourself and you use artificial means to preserve yourself. It is a necessary contradiction of nature. It has nothing to do with my personal opinion. It has to do with how the world sees you as an individual.
Right.
You can't say you're a strong black woman when the basis of your beauty comes from the forced shaving of heads of little girls in India by a rape culture. You understand what I'm saying? And then you're putting that energy into your hair.
Right, right.
And then to the point where you don't even do physical things to preserve you as an individual because you are obsessed with having a certain length and a certain straightness that is contrary to your natural being. Right. So to somebody that's not you, that's not so-called black, Negro, colored, Moorish, whatever, you look like somebody that is trying to be something else. Therefore, if you don't have respect for who you are and your people, why should I do it? You understand? It's that simple. It has nothing to do with what I like, my political view, my social background, my ideology.
Right.
It has to do with the reality
of
how individuals deal with each other in a space that's outside of a controlled space.
And we
understand?
We have Jamie. Yeah, we do. We have Jamie Jones who came back into the studio. I know you don't have your video. He's another host.
Peace.
He's another host on the show.
Hello, sir.
And,
How
peace,
are you?
brother.
Got caught
Peace,
up.
brother. How you doing, man?
I'm doing very well. It's a pleasure to meet you. And I've been listening for the last maybe 10, 15 minutes. I had a question for you about just
up,
what you were just talking about a couple minutes ago about the empires. And as far as today, where do you think we stand? And let me explain. Like, where do you think we are in the process of empire building as, let's say, indigenous people? Do you think we're like gathering the people? Do you think we're in a state of moving to gain our rightful airing back? Do you feel like we're in far as a historical state? Where do you think we are right now in the broad sense?
That's a great question, bro. I think we're definitely on the road to making that happen. The tipping point has come where people are openly accepting the fact that they've always been here and looking into who they are here. So the whole Back to Africa thing was initiated historically by two Jewish people named Melville and Hershkowitz, where they hypothesized the
boosted up
black, the myth of a Negro race. That thing.
Was that like a eugenicist thing?
It's part of Darwinism.
Like eugenics,
they were
eugenicists and they were Darwinists, but they were a little more racially eugenics oriented.
Right. It was.
And so, because they were Jews, they were going to tell the truth a little bit, but then give you the truth in the middle and like a truth sandwich with the truth in the middle and like two lies as the bread.
Right,
so
and they kind of create the phenotypes of what African is with curly hair when there's some Africans with some straight
all of
hair.
that, right? Like localizing it. What they did was localize black people from coming from Africa, and then eugenicizing that as if all so-called people came from Africa. But what they're not saying is that as Freemasons, they know Africa is a code for Earth. So they're geographically creating boundaries in people's mind from where all melanated people come from. So that way they can usher in this idea that you're not from where you're at. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
So they want the people that so-called melanated in Jamaica to believe that there was a people named the Taino and the Arawak that were like Mexican looking, and then the so-called phenotypical Caucasian came and then wiped those millions of people out and then imported them in, and then that's how they got there. When that's the exact opposite of what happened.
Even when you say it out loud, it's like if you write it,
crazy.
it looks like, okay.
Right.
But when you just say the words out loud, it sounds dumb as shit.
And then you get people like Neil deGrasse Tyson smart as he is, teaching school. We just watched a video where he was on Sway talking about how everybody's from Africa and everybody's keep on biting into that nonsense.
Right, but remember,
he's
a Freemason. These is Freemasons, so they know what they're saying when they say Africa. They saying Earth, but they know the profanes, me and you, the people outside of the GOAT Club. And we don't know that. So we think Africa, we just think in the continent that we seen on the map that's actually distorted based on the fact that
it's 5 times
even
larger
the wrong
than
way
North
we supposed
America.
to see it. We supposed to be seeing the map upside down. The way we see it, the way when you see it in your mind now, is not how it's supposed to look. It's supposed to be upside down because all civilizations start in the South first.
And because the South is dark, you know what I'm saying? South is supposed to be dark. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
You're right.
Name one civilization that started in the ice. Other than the movie Frozen. Like, this is where they got you. This is where they got niggas. Like, they don't have people using common sense because they write a book and they created a world where they make original people think that the white man is God. You have to be God if you believe that white people who were little more than peasants at the time had no political sway outside of being slaves to the will of these dirty brute Moors that was at the decline of the empire. Mm-hmm. You understand? The decline of the empire started towards the late 1300s. Let me tell you, when them European Moors and them dirty Moors seen Mansa Musa on that map with that gold nugget, it was a wrap. These niggas was like, we got to find a way to get in there and get this money and find a way to the land of Nod. Or whatever, the Al-Maghreb Al-Aqsa, because that was barred from them. Nobody could come here if they wasn't connected to us. There were secular treaties that existed between us and the indigenous so-called tribes who were Moors that was already here. There was 6 of them. One of the greatest ones was the Eagle Bowl Treaty.
Right.
One of the first ones was the Great Law of Guyanaschwa, the Treaty of Peace and Friendship between the Haudenosaunee. That's what got everybody together. But these niggas want to say that that these Haudenosaunee and Lakota and Panahaswa and Washoe, they want to say that these niggas was referring to themselves as Indians. Right. That's crazy. You're crazy.
Right.
You're crazy.
So you think we're in like a stage of gathering? Like almost gathering?
Yeah, we're in the civil war before the nation get together.
But do we know it? Like, I feel like we're in the stage right now. Personally, I feel like we're in the stage of gathering the audience. Right, so we're gathering the audience of a bunch of conscious people, and I say that with air quotes, conscious people who all have different ideas, but know shit is fucked up and know we need to kind of get together. Right. But they're not doing it right now. We got the bickering over power. We got that man shit going on between the groups but ideology. I still feel like the momentum is building towards people, air quotes again for lack of a better phrase, waking up and seeing it. Because, I mean, as cliche as it is a good phrase. Because people are waking up. Because they have been walking through it the whole time.
That's what Helter Skelter's all about.
Yo, more, I'm watching stuff that I said on lectures 10 years ago, like in movies. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's to that level of the game now.
Exactly.
So,
but I mean,
it is what it is. Like, we are the reason why there was an Obama. The conscious community is what got that nigga elected. You understand what I'm saying? We told people, me personally, I can't speak for anybody else, me, maybe Bobby, some other people, told people, don't expect this nigga to do really anything other than the momentum and the feeling that we have now, the spiritual aspect of what it represents for somebody to get to that level. Don't expect that nigga to get in there and actually do anything for
niggas. You. Exactly. No, I knew that. I was telling niggas the same thing. Like, man, this
brother's a politician. More importantly,
as long as he's a Democrat, as long as he's
for this guy that he didn't deserve or create. The only achievement that I know this nigga created was slavery in Libya, the gay rights, right? Him sitting down with the dude that whipped Henry Gates' ass and drinking beer with him, whose name was Crowley, by the way.
Damn.
And having rappers at the White House. That was it.
He also did executive order where they cannot use Negro on the federal level. That, I think, to me that was huge.
Okay, that's cool.
That was huge.
That's dope. great.
But
One out of
But still,
19.
hey, a lot
That's
of
dope.
One out
At
of
least he
19,
did
that's one,
something.
that's
Oh,
one.
but still, a lot of niggas went to prison
I
on
hear you,
man.
though.
A lot of niggas went to prison on mandatory minimums while he was there.
They sure
and
did.
and for nonviolent drug crimes, and lost their family for years, and he didn't address that really.
Yeah,
too
because
much at all.
he adopted the
'Cause
Clinton
he wasn't.
doctrine.
He wasn't.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes, he wasn't black people's president, and I was telling the people that from
No,
the jump.
he was
this
the Jew
nigga's
president, the
he's
gay
a politician.
president, the
He's a regular politician.
mulatto president,
I don't
the
like.
amalgamated
That's how Donald Trump got
white
in.
woman president.
Because his argument could be all it got to be is, well, you niggas is crooks. And he just threw that out the whole time, and everybody got to shut up because he running in the team of crooks. So he a crook, and all he got to say is, "What you talking about? You the worst." And all of them got
but he
history
did say that black. He did say that black is not a nationality, has no standing
That
in
was
law.
huge.
He did say that.
That's
Oh
important.
yeah.
That's important.
He did
That's
a lot
important.
of fuck shit.
Because no, that's important that he said that because
wait.
he identified that he
What do
was
you
not
mean?
the
What did he
first.
say? What did he
He
say?
said he was the first black president, but the first Kenyan president, African president. He distinguished, or he distinguished himself, a Kenyan
He
president.
said like Kenyan American.
Kenyan American. He distinguished himself from being black. He distanced himself from being black, and
Who,
he did.
Obama?
Yeah, he did. He didn't
Yeah.
call himself black.
He said black has no standing in law on the Tom Joyner show.
Yeah. I try to find that clip because it's supposed to be. Before.
Oh yeah, they gonna erase that.
Yeah,
Shit, man.
that
So
was
you
supposed
said
to
the
be
same
before.
thing, right?
Yeah, it was supposed to be before they went live, but he was still on the air and said that, and there was plenty enough people that heard that. I believe
Yeah, they call that a hot mic.
a hot mic. You know what I'm saying?
That's kind of some G shit. You say the same shit, right?
I don't say that stuff on a hot mic. Man.
No, I
We
mean
don't do
you
that.
say you're not black though.
You know what? That's what we're getting at. And I think you said we're gathering the audience. When we're gathering the audience, I consider myself black to so that we can have a further discussion instead of stopping at the front door at the threshold of having that conversation with my general people.
Which we do a lot.
We do a lot because we get into ideology.
Semantics
we
and
get into
word.
red, black, and green. We get back into the Hebrew Israelites. We get into Moors.
The tribalism.
And we
That's what I'm
tribalism.
saying.
And
It's tribalism.
so-
It's the same tribalism
So I
that
do
led
get
to
it.
the fall of the empire over there and over here. Niggas act like the so-called Indians that they calling Indians, who were indigenous Moors or Tonkin Muslims or whatever you want to call them, the indigenous so-called peoples, the
And
ones that we
niggas-
know that we talked about as hearing as Indians in our family. Them people, they was towards the end banging on each other too, man. The Inca Empire and them niggas was banging on the remnants of the
niggas
the
wanna
empire
win, man.
to their south.
Niggas want to win.
And you
even
had
if-
people, you had the Yamasi that went to, the creeks, the northern and southern creeks that went in to basically massacre the Yamasi, took all the women, had babies with them, and then exiled the rest of them down south where we get the Seminoles or the so-called Seminoles from.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
And then they basically having legitimate bloodlines from both sides was able to establish their own kingdom, and which then led to the wars against the United States trying to move them out. Then they got to move to Mexico, right?
Yes.
With John Horse and them. And then John Horse and them finally get to Mexico, and then their descendants wind up fighting with Santa Anna with the Alamo, trying to take the mosque back. Everybody don't know that the Alamo was one of the original mosques that was there from the original Moors from the ancient times, when the capital of that area was a place called Mount Moriah. There's a book you can get called Time Walker by Meredith Quinn
Time Walker.
that talks about that, as well as another book called Saga America
Saga
by
got
Barry
that one.
Fell,
You
and
can
another
also
book
look
called
on
America BC,
go to Searching for More Instagram.
Islam.
And because you
Islam.
posted it, and I posted your picture with a list
Islam.
of 10, 11 books that you need.
Thank you, Mark.
Everybody needs to. No, thank you for reading them books, because I got a little bit older, had some children, all of a sudden, bow, you know what I mean? Identity crisis, and come to a conclusion at the ages of 40. You know what I'm saying? That's a long damn
Islam.
journey to find out who I am. And when I was younger, it was like, damn, I'm either Indian, because I was Choctaw. My father said Choctaw Blackfoot. And then I was black, and I was like, damn, some of the pictures I've seen, their Choctaws are black, and who's what, you know what I mean? And being Indian at the time was very derogatory, you know what I'm saying, during the time I grew up. But go to Searching for More Instagram, and he has a list of 10, 11 books. And I'm glad that you read those books to bring that knowledge forward, man. And these are not all indigenous inhabitants. These are people for truth. And
This was people here. There was people that was already here. There was
Right.
people that was fighting on both sides of the war. I have documentation where the members of the United States government commented on the fact that there was Aboriginal nations that was here that wasn't on either side, but supported both, and that were never considered in any of the treaties that they did there so after, and that they had no right to establish that without them. Who they talking about? They talking about us.
yes.
When you read Thomas Jefferson's speech about the Indian Removal Act, he talked about the original civilizations that was here and were eventually absorbed or wiped out by the Indian savages. Who they talking about? They're talking about us that was here, who built the pyramids and the mounds and everything, the roads, the cities, the towns, and all of that. And then the so-called invasion or the implantation of those so-called Indians that were exiled from India, as well as China, through the Hun situation, and wound up in pockets of South America and were given aspects of the plains to live in because they came over what they call the Beringia, the so-called Bering Strait. But again, they came over and then were herded into certain areas where they stayed. That's where you get the so-called Mexican-looking Eskimos and the so-called Mexican-looking so-called Native American Indians. And then they interbred with the white people that had kicked us out of those areas and then gave them their children the designation Native American. But when you look up the term a Native American party or where it started in the 1800s by an Irishman and a Jew person named Levitz. So you tell me who's really who and who's doing what. And because none of these brothers and sisters is out here that's dealing from a perspective of a nationality, they have no flag to put their national standing on. Therefore, they can only be dealt with as an NGO or corporation or some sort of inferior governmental position that can only help people through charity.
And
therefore,
that's why,
you're limited, and therefore you're subject to whatever the United States want to do.
and that's why
So,
every judge has to
that's
sign that they're a foreign entity.
That's it. So unless you're trying to file documents that you represent in a foreign trust or a foreign government, to do that, you got to declare a nationality. And because a lot of these black men and black whatever all got feathers in the closet, all are really studying the prophet and studying more science and all of that. But because they got to go to the lodge and they got to be owned by whatever more that's written on their fez, they got to act like what we talking about is crazy, or we on some sovereign citizenship, or we this, do that. But the highest degree in the shrine of them is Assalamu Alaikum. You tell me what these niggas is really doing. These niggas is wearing aprons and all of that. How you gonna wear an apron and a fez at the same time? Like, more, you can't do that. We was the ones that put the aprons on them when we walked them across the hot Arabian desert, 2,200 miles across the hot Arabian desert and to the caves of West Asia. We was riding, they was walking, and they ripped their aprons off and ran up there. So they always wear the apron as respect for the fact that they was always ashamed of their nakedness, ashamed of the fact that they had a small phallus. So what the hell are you doing that? What the hell are you in 2018 wearing that for?
And that's
when you
real,
know better.
That's real talk.
When the
because-
prophet came and told you that you don't got to do that.
And that's what
You want to do that.
You want to do that because you know
you
what?
want to be
And-
down
and-
with that.
and you do. In
You
a
want to
sense,
serve Lucifer in some way.
that's just serving
publicly.
Jesus is the way. That's a morning star, and Jesus is that morning star. And I'm gonna kind of.
You want to do that.
You do, and I'm gonna say this though: as humanity goes and human beings go, we all looking for survival. Now, ignorance, we do certain things. I've been approached by Masons and saying they want me to join. They be whatever. I'm like, okay. How are you going to tell me? I mean, by some high Masons, how are you going to tell me, you know what I'm saying, to join your lodge and you don't recognize that I'm talking about the indigenous habits of being a Moor. So if you don't come to the understanding that we are Moors, then you really don't have the knowledge and information that you had to give me. But they argue that they're the oldest fraternity, which lets us know that, you know what I mean, it's an organization trying to do certain things. And have
The
a certain
term Mason
agenda.
means son of a Moor.
Right. And so if I'm approaching them and they're approaching me and they ain't recognizing that, I'm really questioning how much they really know. Not only that, when we get into human and anthropology, we notice that human beings tend to adapt and maneuver, and one's land is one's land until, if they could defend it. So if what you're saying is saying that, I'm just going to put a controversial grenade out there. If you're saying that because the Europeans come over here and they don't have an original blood tie to the land, makes them that they can't have a legitimate claim.
They cannot.
And then hold on, I hear you. And then they have the military power to have a presence here. that almost would be the same in the sense that the Moors in Andalus, in Spain and so forth, cannot have a legitimate claim there because they weren't Moors that were there necessarily, but they were indigenous inhabitants.
No, you know why? Because they were the descendants, and we are the descendants of the ancient Carthaginians who was there before Rome.
Okay, and then the
Romans
still
ours.
came and they
and then
kicked
we go back
them
before
out.
them.
That's right.
We go back to, you see what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
no matter how far you go back, then we go back to the tribe of Dan, and when after the fall of the invasion of the Sea Kings, when the tribe of Dan went into what they call Peloponnesian and jump started the so-called Peloponnesian cultures, the Macedonians and the Ionians and the Dorians and the Spartans and all of them.
Right.
They adopted the so-called culture, the so-called Hebrew culture that they got from the Canaanites, aka the Danites. That was the seafarers that was doing that. So again, it's always been us, the whole planet. You understand? Prior to a certain time, we had the whole planet speaking the same language, where no matter where you went, you had relatives and people that you could just get down with, and you knew they was there based on whatever mound or whatever pyramid or whatever archway or whatever. You knew who was there based on that and whatever flag they was flying. It was a time when you as a people was like just you and your people. Like you didn't interbreed with nobody else. It was just you and the people that you came from. That's your clan. That's your tribe. But then your clan represented the relation that we had through all of the different Moorish dynasties that existed throughout the empire. And then because we all had our specific clan types, we all stayed in our lane. But whenever it came to making things happen, we all got together and made it happen. We may not always agree, but we ushered it in all the way up until, what I'm saying is that the fall of Rome happened from us. We decimated the entire subcontinent of what they call Europe, to the
Italy,
point them niggas was literally in the dark. We literally shut them down. But Byzantium was rocking. Why? Because Byzantium was Moors, and they was connected to the Abyssinian Empire, and we was connected to the Abyssinian Empire through Muhammad. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It was all one family thing that we was making happen. But what happened was, again, like with Spain, it wasn't a conquest. These niggas didn't take nothing. Isabella came to the King Ezegal, who was the real king. The puppet king was Boabdil, his nephew. And he had a mother named Ayaska. And Ayaska was the warrior. She was ready to kill all of the amalgamated Moorish Christians from the kingdom of Castile and Aragon. But Boabdil was kind of, he was a little, So in that, she, El Zagal, liked the fact that the money, the bag came from Isabella because she got the money from the Medicis, who was already trying to make the ploy to run the Vatican through the Borgias. You understand? We're trying to outstep the Borgias and then got the Pope to okay the joint. So, boom, she bring the money to El Zagal. She gives him the money. He agrees to sell the kingdom, so long as they agree to keep the kingdom under the jurisdiction of the Moorish Empire, birthing the Spanish Empire, which would be a connection or an old thing to it, right? She say, cool. That happens in 1491 on, I believe it's Valentine's Day, February 14th. They file it in The Hague at that time in 1491. Then in 1492, now they come to foreclose. But El Zagal ain't tell everybody that this is what he did. You understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? He ain't tell the whole
deep.
empire that
That's
this is why these niggas is coming here pressing like this. I already sold it for like 17 mil. So, Boabdil, he don't know. So, and he's kind of, like I said, so he's like, whatever. So he basically agreed to hand over the keys. And in the process of that, that's when they leave. And that's when he say, he start crying, and his mother say, don't weep like a woman for what you couldn't defend as a man.
Right.
And then that's when she went and got the Moriscos together, and that's when that ushered in 275 years of white slavery. We started enslaving white people anywhere we could find them based on that. And everybody hated Europe. All amalgamated Moors in Europe hated Spain because of that. So we had relationships with George. We had relationships with everybody else because they was a part of the family. You understand what I'm saying? But these dudes, who today, if we seen them, now again, I'm not blaming the people today, but if we was to see the Moors we was dealing with today that did this, this would be the so-called Puerto Rican, the so-called Dominican, the so-called, you see what I'm saying? Bolivian, you know, these type of Brazilian, these type of Moors, the Portuguese, you see what I'm saying? They darker skin and all that, but they still, you know, we not like y'all, because now that y'all been deposed as a people, now we're going to move into the corporate phase of our dynasty and then start taking y'all estates by enslaving y'all, or getting y'all to deny y'all nationality, abandon your government, and come into our government. And that's what's been going on ever since. So people can vote, but if you're going to do it as a block vote, as a Moorish group. You understand? Yeah. Therefore, you're doing it from a republic elector position, and therefore you now function in the upper tier 1% of the vote that you're doing. You're not casting a vote. Cast means to throw away. Vote come from votum in Latin, which means like to like disappear or some shit like that. You know what I'm saying? So if you're going to do it from the perspective in the republic aspect. But to do that, you need some sort of unifying body. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You could do it as an individual state, but everything works better when you work in unity, in unit. But what these Moors want to do, the dirty Moors, what these so-called blacks and Africans want to do is they want to pump what they saying above the aspect of what the world is dealing with. The world deals with nationalities. Anybody that's stateless is enslaved. All of the migrants around the world are what? Slaves. All of the immigrants are what? Unless they white and Jewish. What? Slaves.
But we really can't. Africans can't be slaves because that's they're not Slavic.
What I'm saying, I don't mean slaves in terms of they're not Slovaks. They can never be that, but they can be designated as whatever the country they are vying for some sort of mercy from deems them as. So at what point do you stop leaving your country and stay in your country and make it better? At what point do you just say finally, like there's a town in Mexico where the women got together. The women got together and decided to kick the police and the corporations out. And then the men jumped up and backed them up. And to this day, these niggas ain't got no police. They don't got no basic law in the sense that they have to adhere to, outside of the sense that if you come into the town, any type of situation you come in with, town is guarded. They have a so-called Republican form of government where they nominate whoever's running, and it's multilateral, meaning it's women and men and children.
And I do see it as the women now, and like Jamie said, as we are on the gathering phase. Drew Ali said we have to change the literature. As everybody's waking up and we have more and more books published on this, and we know that right now the quote-unquote indigenous melanated woman in the United States and the Americas is the most intelligent. And I do think in time that the men will put themselves up by the bootstraps and work as hard and not be outworked, that they will be able to stake their claim. And I do think that, we are going to get to the place where the woman has her proper place, because oftentimes the women are the ones who have the, like when Stalin and them were coming in to fight Ethiopia, they didn't want to deal with the women. They didn't want to be killed by a woman because they were brutal. And so I'm just saying that I can see ourselves at a phase, when going back to Jamie's question of where we're at right now, that we're at the tipping point, as you mentioned, going back to where we start acknowledging our women. If us men could step up to the game and honor our women, because when we call them bitches and hoes, we talking about our women. We talking about killing a nigga. We talking about our people. We ain't talking about anybody else. But I could see us at that tipping point, as you said, as an example, with those women stepping up. I know that the men are sure to follow. And I think that's a beautiful
Inshallah.
example.
I mean, inshallah. But, like I said, man, I'm of the understanding that it's a 50-50 situation. It's 50% her problem, 50% my problem. What's happening is that she wanted to be 90%, 95, 99% my problem, and 0.001% her problem. You know what I mean? And then me, I want her to just acknowledge the 50%, but because she don't, I then decide to go out and do me. You see, it creates this cycle that we've been seeing since Claudine came out. Like this is the type of ritualistic socialization that has happened based upon movies. When the Panther thing died out, the Panther thing didn't die out because people stopped being conscious. The Panther thing died out because people started going to the movies and seeing Three the Hard Way and Coffee and Superfly and all of that, and Shaft and all of that. That basically channeled all of that energy into an aesthetic, a lifestyle, a look, as opposed to an actual political and social upheaval
way of life
for your own community.
Because that was a culture.
People,
they changed the culture, which is the way you live. You know what I'm saying?
All the Panthers went in and got social jobs. They all became social workers, and they all became tenured professors and stuff. But then the real ones, like Asada and Geronimo and Bunchy and Fred and these niggas, they dead. You understand what I'm saying? So this is what I'm trying to say. Like, they ain't no Fred Hampton University. There ain't no Bunchy Carter Institute for the preservation of black people. That don't exist yet. The only people that could make that exist is Moors. Why? Because out of all of the so-called socially, politically, whatever black groups, we're the only ones that have been talking this thing since the 1900s. You understand? We're the first ones through the Divine National Movement talking about the Divine National Movement. Talking about we was already here. Talking about when the European got here, the Mississippi. Talking about just because you born here, that don't make you a citizen. That's just what Trump told you. That's just what Trump about to flip on y'all now. We've been talking this thing from the beginning. You had people from Africa come over here and tell Noble Drew Ali that he not a prophet, and then try to take him to the white man court. This how crazy these niggas are. And niggas today hold on to this. Then try to take him to the white man court and get the white man to co-sign it. Now think about that. He an African at this time. Actually, he's whatever national. I think he's Sudanese or whatever. This is during the time that the Mahdi started popping his joint off. So he come over here to challenge Noble Drew Ali prophethood. Talk about he don't do this and he don't do that or whatever. So in that, go to the white man, say that. The white man said, look, you better leave that man alone. You better go back to where you come from, whatever, Sajid, Majid, or whatever your name is, and leave that man alone. Let him do what he needs to do. Because again, I say all that to say is that there's so much history about your own people that did things here. Moors was voting. This is how deep it is. Moors was getting people elected in the 20s when it was illegal for Negroes to vote. Think about that, Moore. Think about that. But niggas ain't talking about that. And they still had their nationality, and they had towns and property and all that, and the white man wasn't coming hanging them doing none of that. The few Moors that was getting into it based upon their relationship or connection to some infiltrator Moor, some Freemason that was trying to get into the Greater Temple. That's my word. When I read the history and I read it, that's what I see. So what I see today is a bunch of people who all benefited. Everybody benefited. Where did all of those people after Marcus Garvey go? All those people that had that knowledge, wisdom, understanding, all that intellect, money, intelligence.
They started working for the government.
Industrialness, where they went.
Into the government. Where get government jobs.
They went right into the Moorish Science Temple of America. Why you think the prophet would put money on Garvey books?
You talking about the Garveyites wearing fezzes and so forth?
I'm talking about the Garveyites back in the day.
Yeah, okay.
I'm talking about when Marcus Garvey got locked down.
Okay.
All of that energy, all of the people, where they went.
Yeah,
they went into the Moorish Science Temple of America. Why? Because the prophet was there to hold down Garvey.
And then
while all of these other niggas was hating on him.
So then can we say that today that, that we know that, Elijah Poole-Bey and Farad,
all of them came out the temple.
Right. So can we say now, potentially, that if we're going to say that all these African Americans, quote unquote African Americans, are indigenous Paleo-American Moors or just Moors, that now by voting that they have chosen Islam? Because I see when they go to the temple, there's a lot of fezzes in there. Can we say that right now, that right now is the temple?
Picking up. Picking up. People waking up. But think about it. All of the years we've been in the conscious community, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm 45, right? So I got first knowledge of self back in like 95 when I got understand like true knowledge of self. Like prior to that, my aunt was like a Panther, you know what I mean? So I knew certain things, and my mother was cultural, you know what I'm saying? I went to art school, you know what I'm saying? That type of thing. But I would say I really got knowledge of myself through the nation of gods and earths. Peace to the Father Allah, peace to the nation gods and earths. And the enlightenment I had at the time was a more name damn, I forget this Moore's name, but peace to him. And he put me on. And at the time, I was into like breakdancing. It was like the village style. So I had like a nose ring. And he was like, yo, God, if you're going to get down with this, you're going to have to take this down. You got to take that nose ring out because that was a symbol of the pirates that used to enslave our people. And it just bugged me out, you know what I'm saying, to such a understanding that I went and researched it. And I found, you know, I would look at pictures, see these people, but then I would also see that these people, some of these people called Moors. And this thing kept coming up. So by the time, you know, jump ahead now, all these years later with the Moorish understanding, I started to realize that all of this history that I'm reading is Moorish science. Because all of Western civilization, do you understand there would be no Western civilization if it wasn't for our people who were from North Africa, Northwest Africa, and the so-called Barbary powers, who of what representative Al-Maghreb, Al-Aqsa, all the way from what they call Egypt, all the way to Mali, all the way over here, all the way to California, all the way down to South America, all the way back up. Those people had a global trade empire that allowed them to transverse the world and do their business from ancient times, back when niggas was calling them Phoenicians and Canaanites and Phrygians and Fomorians and names we don't even remember. And so consistently, the headgear was matriculated back to all of the other cultures that came after. Like I said, one of the oldest cultures here in America is the Kerala Supe. They even older than the Olmecs. And we look at their pictures, they all got feathers and turbans on, and they all black people. And they was here before them. So when we thought the Olmecs was here, so what's going to happen when we find out the culture before them wearing the same thing? So that's all coincidence? That's all non-existent? Like I'm not supposed to connect myself to that? Because what, Mexicans live there now? They trying to leave their country. They can't come here. So let them niggas have the part that they want. Let's get our own joint.
Right.
You understand that right now, if you sold a platinum record, let's say, and you made $1.45 million, do you know right now you could buy a town and you could put a whole generation of people in it and nobody would even know?
I would do that.
But niggas talk about, do you know right now, if you had $37,000 to maybe $40,000, you could buy an average city block in any city in the United States? And you mean to tell me niggas don't understand, like, how much power they have? Like, I've seen more, I knew a Moore has so much money. Real talk, Moore. He has so much money, the rats was eating that shit. You know what I'm saying? Like it was molding. You know what I'm saying? And I'm a shorty. I'm a child seeing this. You dig what I'm saying? Where that money now? Where he at now?
Man, that's gonna you're saving your talents. You ain't supposed to be saving your talents. You know what I'm saying? You're supposed to be applying.
You dig what I'm saying, more?
Right.
Like these Moors is out here tripping. You mean to tell me you got all this understanding? You don't know that the only way that any international body is going to hear you is if you come as a unified people? But you want to come behind the church.
Right.
You want to go to Africa. Look at what's happening in Africa right now, right? Last month, Trump put this decree in the Congress that allowed them to establish military bases in Ghana if Ghana let them. It was a big outcry, and allegedly Ghana declined.
Right.
Then a month after that, Ghana put out a document saying that they would give African Americans specifically free visas to come to Ghana. Now think about that. Think about that. So it's a coincidence that right when this nigga say he gonna try to open 20 military bases in the city, that's when y'all niggas put out this document talking about, oh, we sorry for slavery. Y'all can come back free, no visa and all of that.
Nigga, we ain't from
there. Come on now. There was an old Twilight Zone episode called How to Serve Man. And it was about the aliens when they came and everybody was bugging and they were so humanitarian and they were there and they had this mandate called How to Serve Man, and it was a book and it became a bestseller and everybody was there, and then finally they allowed people to come to the spaceship and because they understand the doctrine of how to serve man and how to be, humanitarian and all of that. And then the doctor that was spearheading all the shit who was mad skeptical at first wound up being won over. He decided, okay, fuck it, I'm gonna go with these people to their world and see what it is, because we want to serve the universe now. And then boom, he's on the ship going up, and secretary went on and said, yo, we translated the book. It's actually a cookbook. And so while you
Oh,
trying to
wow.
get off the shit closed, and then they fly off, and then that's that. So again, it's an allegory to what's happening now. Niggas act like you think these white people think this nigga Trump is there backing them up and letting them do what they want to do. But what he's really doing is allowing the world to see how the white man and white woman don't deserve no sympathy for everything that they've done, specifically the American one. And the British one is right after, and the Israeli one is right after that. The Russian one, the Italian one, the real wars start after what these white people go on, and then we got to deal with the Chinese. But the Chinese already started with Africa. They already opened 19 police stations in South Africa. They already opened up their own their own airport in Zimbabwe. They already start in phase 2 of the situation. So niggas talk about all of that to explore Akon. Akon is this and that. But they just China just gave this nigga allegedly $1 billion credit limit. What that says to me is that he's an agent. He's an agent in China. And he's trying to get you niggas to go to Africa so they can create a new slave labor class so that way the Africans could feel like they better than you. I may be wrong.
Hey,
I may be wrong.
No, but I just
politically speaking,
yes,
that's what it looked like.
And what also looks like the sound effects is hella funny, but that's why we talk about. That's why I kind of bring this to the conversation. You kind of bring us into the present moment, and for us as individuals to start thinking about what's best for our families and what to do. We have Candace Owens, Dr. Dyson, and other individuals, David Banner, D.L. Hughley, and Boyce Watkins. A lot of these individuals are coming up with different things to do and solutions in a wide spectrum of ideas to what to do. You know, Candace Owens is pushing the Republican agenda like Kanye West was doing. And then you get, and so my thing is this. My thing is this, with the audience of individuals who are coming into this who don't understand the nationality, don't understand some of the things we're talking about, is it in our benefit, even though I know at the beginning you said it's not in our benefit, but as times evolve, empires rise, empires fall. We know who it is. Jupiter rising. She is Jupiter ascendant. She knows who she is. She's a king. She's the queen of the universe. She goes back to scrubbing toilets with toothbrushes. So is it in our best interest, in the sense of the populace, right now at this point in time, to work within the system to gear it towards what we're trying to do in a nationalistic sense?
Can I answer that first?
Sure, bro.
I say yes. And let me explain. I say yes, we need to work in the system only because we are not prepared. We do not have a system in place of our own. So if we detach, we'd be fucked up right now.
Other people are coming in.
So yeah, so we need to take advantage of the system at every point where we can. And we need to teach our own to own as many businesses as they can. It's the only way to really for a black nigga to become a white man is to own a corporation.
Or invest in the stock.
Or own a successful corporation.
Right.
So whatever that is, we should be owning something. To not ask anybody else, to generate dollars for ourselves, to have a say on where our dollars are circulated, to generate the momentum of where we circulate our dollars, to prepare our breakaway to create the system.
And
but creating that system is going to take funding that we need to use
it always
their
starts
system
with economics.
to do.
But the thing is, we have different. That's kind of like I wanted to initiate with the start with the show, but Aseer wouldn't let me do it with his beautiful history, his beautiful mind, and breaking it down. In that regards, this black idea. When you say us, and then in that regards, we have different ideologies as melanated indigenous inhabitants. So we can have a group that has their interest in developing their economic system. Let's just say one happens in Oklahoma again, one over here, one over there. I can see in our geographical location, when we start doing that, we'll start looking out for our own interests and start looking out for ourselves in history. And it's very important for us to come to this knowledge that we are attached to, our indigenousness, or otherwise we're just going to become another, black Republican or something like that. You know what I mean?
The dangerous part is we got to attach it to solutions, though.
Right, true.
You know what I mean?
Well,
even if we're pondering, because just going over the history is good and it's necessary to know how to fight who you are. You need to know who you're fighting. So history is good, but it needs to come with solutions. And
I think the history detaches us from the European in the sense that it shows us that we're different and that we don't just replicate the same thing. We can replicate the same thing in reverse in a certain type of way, but allow ideology to go through, but not allow.
See, the history is what allows you to know what's owed to you.
Right.
That's why they don't put emphasis. Think about it. Everything they're doing to you is based on something they did historically. Name one thing that's happening to you now that didn't happen because some white man did it or enforced it through some statutory code, legislative body, or whatever. You can't, because everything that they do is based on what happened before. So why is it when we do it, it's a problem? See, it's a problem when we do it because we are actually the true possessors of the land. The land is the money. The land is what's tied to your inheritance. The inheritance is backed by the full faith and credit of the United States. When you become a national of your state, you become a direct depositor, elector of that inheritance. And whatever debt you get, you can charge to the United States, and the United States has to pay it, period. It has nothing to do with any political body. This is what your ancestors left you. But because we listen to a bunch of niggas, and because we listen to a bunch of people who do not stand for nothing outside of YouTube clicks, outside of some sort of public accolade, some sort of financial endeavor, they are not understanding the true weight of what you're dealing with. You are the only people in the world that is not identified by a nationality. Do you think that's coincidence? Do you think that's on for a reason?
And when people
you are the only people in the world. When they with somebody from Ethiopia, when they from somebody from India, they don't go to that person and say, you really from Africa, you should go back to Africa and find your roots. When they go to somebody that's dark skinned in Bolivia, they don't go to them and say, you know what, you're really from Africa, you should go back to Africa and find your roots. When they go to somebody in Germany that's black, they don't say to them, you know what, you should go back to Africa or whatever and find your roots. The only people they do that to is the so-called black man and black woman of America. Why? Why?
To strip
Who does
your
it benefit
ass of
that you don't have a nationality? Think about it. Who benefits?
They do.
Everybody that's been making money or for speculating on what your nationality is. So look around you and see who's that. I've been talking about the same thing for over 25 years, Steve.
Man,
that's how real I am with this.
You got 25
Niggas can say
more
what
years
they
to
want,
go.
and everything has shaped and moved to corroborate what I've been saying. Excuse me, forget me. What the Moors, what the Prophet, what people who identify as Moorish Americans have been knowing from the beginning. If I can show you Moors putting people in office with their own nationality outside the U.S. system as electors through the Republican form of the organic Constitution that existed from 1787, the same year that we established the Treaty of Peace and Friendship, signed on the Delaware River. Come on, man. Come on. What are you niggas talking to me with Africa? What are you talking about? What are you talking to me about? Oh, I'm Cherokee. Oh, nigga, Cherokee started in the 1800s. Nigga, what are you talking? Show me a flag from any Indian nation.
Yeah.
From any Indian nation prior to the late 1700s or the 1800s. Show me one. I could show you Moors flying a flag from almost 3100 BC.
Yes.
From stone, my dude. In stone.
Stone, brother. I know what you're talking about.
These Negroes talking out the other side of their face, and they all got feathers in the closet. But on Thursdays, they put on aprons because they want to be brothers with these pedivores, these white WIGHT Freemasonic baby eaters.
Who are you
These
talking
niggas
about?
would
The Moors?
rather.
Are you talking about the Moors in power
I'm talking
today?
about everybody. I'm talking about everybody that it applied to. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about everybody that it applied to. Whether we know them personally, whether we don't know them personally, whatever. They know who they are because they're offended now by what I'm saying.
Right.
Because it has nothing to do with me. This ain't about me.
No, I'm just wondering.
What I'm trying to say is
no, I didn't take it personally. I was just getting clarification of the
what's
people
going
you're
on.
speaking on when
Niggas
you say
are making money off of political hits And a lot of these hits go down in these Freemasonic circles, and they solidify them with money and sex, okay, and blackmail.
Right.
All European business run on blackmail. It don't run on money. It run on blackmail. What I got you on videotape doing, what I got you on tape doing.
That's why they compromise you when they try in their initiation process.
Come on now. Why you think I ain't got no Instagram? Why you think I ain't got no Twitter? Why you think I ain't got none of that?
You got a Facebook.
You understand? I
just got rid of my
Facebook and YouTube. That's it.
I got rid
and
of my
I'm trying
Facebook.
to phase the Facebook out.
Like I dropped
They
it,
won't
but
even let you delete an account. That's how you know it's some other situation going on
I
with
deleted
that.
that because I didn't like the, say easy access, but I would like to get the information out. But what I'm saying, like Cujo did, I dropped off of Facebook. I do have an Instagram. I'm searching for more. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, more. But what I'm saying is, based on where I'm at with certain things, I'm seeing the political climate, and I'm seeing how people are just saying anything. They're just saying anything to enter in debates. They're making up anything. I've had DVDs where niggas have called me a clone. I've had DVDs. I've had niggas do tapes where they I don't know. They're talking about my queen. Like they're crazy, and I don't have a lot of that type of stuff. But I'm saying to say is, regardless to what is going on, there's always going to be an objective within our own people to derail us from where we're going, and that original divisiveness came from those who originally crossed over. Those who broke themselves into 12 different tribes and eventually became lost.
When does that change? When does it change?
And these lost people, this, in my opinion, it started in 3100 BC when the Hebrews split from the Moabites, and they decided that they was going to go their way and started worshiping calves and all this other stuff. And then they got mad because they were starving. So then they decided to invade Canaan, which was our land, right? And then knock that out. Then we made a agreement with them that we would leave certain Moors amongst them as what's called the Pahath Moab, Pahath Moab, who would be the ones to choose who would be the king of each of the so-called 12 tribes, because they adopted our customs, they adopted our language, they adopted our writing. So when we see Hebrew writing, that's ancient Phoenician Canaanite writing.
Baby.
That's us. Because they were lost. They started in Egypt,
they had a civil war
and then
as well
they decided
in Egypt.
They wanted to be somewhere else.
And they said a civil war in Egypt with the Israelites, and that's why they had the I forgot the name of the stone, but the stone talks about
the Moabite stone.
The Moabite stone,
That's
exactly.
Shamash. That's right, from Shamash. Yep. And they adopted that, and they invaded Canaan, and then they knocked that out. And then those of us that was of those people went to our cousins in Hekippatar, which they call Egypt, and then said, yo, your peoples is bugging. We need our own spot. So then they said, okay, you do you in the northwest, southwest, southeast portion, which again is North, Central, and South America. And so we came back over here, did what we did, and then set up satellite kingdoms that today we call the Barbary States. And then through the Barbary States, around the 7th century BC, again, moved up and then locked down everything up to the southern France, and then merged with aspects of the Habsburg and the British dynasty, and then started to move our way into the French. But by the 1500s, Charles V comes over here and then becomes Carlos Quintus and marries into the Inca Empire and becomes the first European up here. And then from there, sets up the lands in what we today call the Carolinas, which is now North and South Carolina, under what he called the Carolingian dynasty. So all of this is connected directly by blood to each one of us, and it's documentation in libraries and political houses all over the world, man. I'm traveling, getting them, and I'm on YouTube laughing sometimes at some of the stuff these dudes are saying. But I'm not going to be the one that's going to be on YouTube. Hey, look at this. This is what it is. This dude lying. Nah. What I'm going to do is put it in perspective and put it where it needs to go. So this way, when these crackers open the vault and all of that, we start really living. These is the niggas you gonna remember. They the ones. They the ones that was out here telling you that you was everything else, making you believe that you was everything else, giving them money to be everything else.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? When really it's what we've always been. It has nothing to do with a political Islam and religion. Like, we are so vast as a people, man.
Right.
Islam, it's like, Islam, these niggas be like, it's exhausting.
Check it out.
Islam is new.
I I guess, quote unquote, I'm a black man in America. I'm 44 years old. I own a few different corporations. Never had no outside funding. I do. I
Islam. That's what I'm
built
talking
them
about,
on my
more.
own.
You doing it.
I but I'm looking what to do now. You know what I'm
What you want to
saying?
do
I'm
is put
looking
that
what I'm.
into an estate/trust. Get your nationality to become the foreign entity that trust is connected to, which then makes it a disregarded entity to the United States. And then reclaim that same trust as an estate under Moroccan stock, which then puts it under the most favored nation status. And because the Prophet Noble Joe Ali came, you automatically get tax exempt status once you become member of a credible temple, which, I do with you on that, on how to do it. That's essentially how it's done. But you want to make sure that it's done in a manner by which now all of your documentation is reflective of the same ID. Like when you see a Chinese person, his Chinese name is on his ID. You know what I'm saying? When you see a black person, his corporate name is on the ID unless there's an eel on there. If there's an eel on there, then he's dealing with a nationality thing. So the same government that niggas is talking about don't acknowledge Moors, don't do this, don't that. This is the same government I'm as consul helping Moors receive passports from, stating the exact opposite. But again, I'm not out here on some, hey, go to my website, download this, send this to this person. Like, I'm not going to do that because all that. Sometimes the more truth you bring to something, the more confusing people will get.
Right.
So you got to let people deal with you as they in. I've never liked salesmen. I've never liked soliciting. I've been in positions where I'm at a more first getting into it, Mad Green, and we sitting there, he teaching me all of this more science. And I realize I'm sitting in a Freemasonic lodge. What are you talking to me about? All I'm seeing is the opposite of what he's talking about. This Islam and the Prophet and this. All I'm seeing is the most worshipful master and this and that. Then I'm thinking, well, hey, is this nigga trying to put some type of spell on me? You know what I'm saying? Like, is he trying to ingrain something? Because that's how I've always thought. Paranoid or whatever that is. I've always thought that because I grew up reading certain type of books, Pet Cemetery. You know what I'm saying? Swan's Lake, like all types of like novels and stuff like that. So I'm very attuned to hypermotivation.
Right.
So whenever I see elements of that in situations, I strive to step back and be less involved and more objective. So that way I'm not bringing my BS to the situation. And what I see in the Moorish community, what I see in the so-called Black conscious community is that they don't realize how we are dictating how society runs now. We got Obama elected. There's parts of us that understand what the Trump thing is doing. And then remember when there was a time in the conscious community when you had like the Israelites saying this and the Aseer Society saying this and then the God saying this, and everybody could come together and listen and go to this one lecture, Ashraf Kwesi, or this one. Even if you wasn't even down with it, you would just go to just get the knowledge.
I'm not from the West Coast. We don't have that. We ain't on 125th
Well,
Street.
what I'm saying is there was a time when you see some of the old DVDs that you see some of these jokers on YouTube show and stuff like that. There was a time where it was really popping like that. So I came in towards the end of that wave. You know what I mean? Towards the very end, a lot of the elders was going away. So what I'm saying is, what I peeped was that it went from a situation of people revering and supporting information and exposing what this devil is doing to us daily, to then exposing the black devils that was really working with this devil, like Steve Coakley, people like that was really putting in work. Claude Anderson, Professor Smalls, you understand? These niggas is really jewel proof them. They can show you legal documentation, government funded programs that they was doing this to you through, which was dope. And then it went to this nigga's a liar, this nigga's this nigga's that, and now that's all it is. But somewhere in between all of that, the Moorish thing kind of became the thing, period. You understand? I remember looking for books on Moors, like literally looking, driving to places like Buffalo, looking for real books on Moors, couldn't find them, had to steal them when I could. You understand? Right. Now, it's hundreds of books, and some of them is not even written by Asiatics. And some of those got some of the illest info when you research it from that.
Right.
You dig what I'm saying? So again, what I'm seeing is a lot of secretarian chess playing, a lot of people acting one way, you know what I mean, acting like they not down with this one, but they really down with this one. So what that says is we're in the same place that the Panthers and all that was once COINTELPRO went in. You go from Eldridge Cleaver talking about Soul on Ice to him being the head chair for the Republican Party to get Reagan nominated. You know, you go from Bobby Seale with Huey to him setting up the diet and all of that. You get Angela Davis marrying a white woman. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So anybody pumping any type of rhetoric that's not based around a national identity. This is why white men is going down with this white nationalism thing, because white can't be a nationality. So they're already done. You see what I'm saying? They already disqualified themselves from any type of human exchange now because they've made themselves open corporations.
Right.
That's why Trump letting them kill themselves. It's great. It's great. So long as they ain't hanging you, and so long as you got a community around you that can protect you from them, you should let them crackers do whatever they want to do. Let them burn. Let them do what they're doing. Because what's going to happen is when it goes down, they're the first ones that's going to catch all the hits. Because when the crackers and the things come, they're not coming for us. When I say us, I'm talking about those of us that are in a standing that when it goes down, I can fly this flag from outside of my house and they go right next door to the next nigga. You don't believe me? Look at the movie Red Dawn. You don't believe me?
That's real
Read
talk.
the book.
Hey, no. Do you
what you
also
read the articles of war.
just the whole story of Passover?
Niggas be playing.
The Passover story. You mark your door with a red.
That's what I'm talking about,
you know what I'm talking about?
That's what I'm talking about.
Because the angel is a messenger. You know what I'm saying?
Nationality
It could be a
keep you from
messenger of
demonic
death or what have
possession,
you.
man. So long as you're not a Christian, you good, B. Telling you, it's mass mind control. And we existed before all three of the Abrahamic religions. All three of them.
Right.
We got ancestors that went back before all of it and helped them build all of that. That's why I can be a Muslim, but I don't consider myself a Muslim because I don't.
You're not
the
orthodox.
Quran says remembrance of Allah is worth more than prayer. One learned man is worth more than 1,000 worshipers. Jesus is mentioned in the Quran more than Muhammad, and Mary is mentioned more than both of them. So when I read the Circle 7, when I understand Jesus, I'm looking at the archetypical understanding of what it was to be the type of Moor to declare his nationality to Rome. That's exactly what the hell I'm doing right now.
Hey, you know what? That's exactly right. That's why Paul is named in the Roman government. If you look at that, stop and pause. That was a deep point because Paul's name is Shaul. It's Saul.
That's right.
Shaul.
And Shul is what in Hebrew? That's the hell.
Right. Well, yeah, that's a place where it burns. And he would use
right.
Paul, and what he was saying, that's what they were talking about. They were talking about people who came and dominated the land as these
that's the
people
Hebrews,
had
the
their
ones
inheritance.
who crossed over.
Yep.
Those who crossed over the River Jordan, who started worshiping the false calf god. That's why Jordan, right? And the colors for him, and the colors for this god that they was worshiping, which was a reversion of Mithra merged with Hathor, was called, his colors was black, white, and red. That's why Michael Jordan, who is also the god of the air, which was the god that they was worshiping, who was also the god of the air, was the god of the bull, which is why it was also the god of the bull. You understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
They ritualistic, and the god's number was 23.
Yeah. And
so what they did was archetypically turn this Moor, who was a Tar Heel, right, which means he's a Sissiska Blackfoot, by generation, he's an original man, Osiris, who they done now ritualized into this archetype to be able to make all this money based on the foot. And you know, the foot is the symbol of the sex organs, which is why niggas be killing for Jordans, and which is why niggas will cross you for Jordans. You see what I'm saying? Because it's all based on the gematria and the magic that these devils be using, and be using these Moors as finger puppets to implement it, and then get everybody else to follow behind it.
They put it right in
because it's all based upon their religion. What we are not understanding, this is their religion. Their religion is to sacrifice and kill you and eat you. It has nothing to do, and I'm not saying that all white people want to do that. What I'm saying is that the nature exists for them to do that. Because if it wasn't, you wouldn't have pictures today, hundreds and thousands of pictures today of white people in droves with their children on their laps, in the belly, sucking the breast, watching black men getting ripped up and their penises cut off and all this shit.
100%.
And you mean where do all them white people go?
And that's where the Inca Katera is
where
written
they at?
on the back of
they right
children's
here
skin.
more.
Yeah,
These
that's
are
what
the
the
niggas
Inca
that these
Katera is
niggas, these
written
basketball players is having
in
babies and shit with now. You understand? And you wonder why black people is still fighting each other, because we're having sex with the very iniquity that birthed this shit. And niggas act like it's a choice.
It ain't a choice. That ain't no Kanye shit. That's what
Niggas,
the Inca Katera.
you will never hear a
Inca
Chinese
Katera
person
has
talking about, oh, I don't date Chinese people.
The Inca
You don't never hear no European person, white people talking about, oh, I don't date Europeans. I don't date this of my own race. You might haven't hear no Mexicans say that. The only idiots that say things like that is maladapted, brain dead black people. And these are the people that's telling you to vote. This is Candace Owens. How you telling me how I can free my mind, bitch, and you still got a perm in your head? First of all,
real.
First of all, before you even go to vote, you got to go and pay that Korean to go get that weave, whatever you're doing. That's the first thing you're doing. Before you even thinking about voting, you're thinking about how your perm is not going to blow out. And you think I'm a support you in running the country?
Hell no.
No wonder you back.
You know what's also crazy is when you bring in some of the ancient and their religion. If you go to the London's Guild, I want everybody to go Google the London's Guild. Now I want you to see who's posted up in the London's Guild. It's Gog and Magog. If you know what Gog and Magog is and how that relates, you will see that's what these battles are going to be talking about. And those individuals, the Visigoths, Vice Lords. Not Vice Lords, Visigoth,
the Visigoths and the Ostrogoths.
Ostrogoths, yeah. Those individuals, and there's more groups of them that bound up together, but they are Gog and Magog. That's why, the Ashkenaz are a descendant of Noah, and that area of Germany is Ashkenaz land. And I'm not trying to point out an ethnic group in a way of wanting anybody to get destroyed. Just wanting to make the connections of what he's saying about how this is religion, and that it's a religion because they're calling us children, kids, and we have scapegoats. And when we have scapegoats, they put children. You know what I mean? And they took the skin of children and they wrote the Inca Katera. If I'm saying that wrong, they wrote a treaty, trust on the back of children and put it in a vault. And when he's talking about eating children, that's exactly what they used to do. They came over here doing that in Charlestown. They was digging up our people, and Thanksgiving they was eating us, and they had Black Friday. I mean, they have a history of doing this, and that's part of what they're doing. And so even though I want to start the show talking about the paradigm within the blackness of understanding, we really, in a way, are not part of that discussion. But at the same time, we've got to find a way to engage so that the outside forces don't create a climate in which help make our lives more difficult. And so that's
I think the thing is we can't do anything if we're going to do it public. We can get people to know about it, but you got to almost do it like some flash mob shit. You can't even really publicize it like that. It got to be those type. You go to those clubs and then you go to the back and then they open up the wall and then it's a whole nother club. You got to have something like that popping because in the end, everybody you live in a fast food culture, so everybody needs to be seen 24/7. So they couldn't. When they first started proposing everybody getting, cameras everywhere, there was huge riots and all that. I remember that in the late 90s and all of that. But what they did was they created MySpace as a beta test, and they got people with that. So once they came out with Facebook and then the cell phones and then the pictures in the phone, that then desensitized people from the cameras all around them. And then what that did was that urged people to now want to have cameras. You understand what I'm saying? So you got to understand you're in a society, you're in a type of petri dish that anything that you do to break out, as much as you do it, as long as you're striving to do it within that, you're never going to get out. Because like for instance, there's a movie called Dinner with Andre. And if you watch this movie towards the end of it, he's having dinner with this Caucasian dude and he's describing New York. And New York basically is everything that he's saying it is. It's basically an open prison where everybody lives and everybody maintains the prison based upon their position of what they feel they are in the prison. And in that, nobody knows that's the prison. And when you tell them it's a prison, it makes them want to stay in it longer. So apply that now to the United States, and apply that United States understanding now to all the countries in the world that the United States is trying to market that to. Now times that by what China's objective is, what Russia's objective is, what Iran's objective is, on a mundane human level. You have to understand their enemy is not us. Their enemy is the so-called infrastructure, so-called white power structure that they have been doing that. And they've been fighting to try to get that, destabilize that since the beginning of civil rights. People don't understand. Martin Luther King and these people, they came up through communist ideology. They went to a place called, I believe it's Harp Springs or some sort of farm they used to go to.
Talk about that. Talk about the Russian infiltration with the black leadership before we go, because we're about out of time. But can you end us with that?
They used to go to these communist-backed situations. There was a guy named Frank Marshall Davis who used to host orgies for a lot of the so-called black liberation type peoples to have sex with white women and all that. Allegedly, Obama's mother, all them naked pictures that you see of her. That's taken by Frank Marshall.
I heard you on another show. You talked about how a lot of our black organizations, and we're about out of time, but how some of our black organizations were infiltrated through, by Russia and so forth like that. And you were talking about, a lot of our brothers and sisters. So could you end us out, close us out with that information about how, some of our deepest black power movements we end up becoming socialists by propaganda that's coming in from external territories?
Indeed. It's very much creation. What we understand as socialism was actually birthed by the Mayas. If you look at the Maya civilization and the Maya economic structure, it was very much like socialism, but it was still based on equality. You know what I'm saying? So by the time the Russians adopted that and they started to influence the blacks to do that, that was a way that they would work with the Jewish media, the Jewish people, to be able to prop that up. Because people don't know, before Israel was Israel, they was going to make Israel in China, in a place called Manchukuo that they had acquired during the Japanese invasion. But after they kicked the Japanese out, it didn't work. So they decided that they was eventually going to give them Palestine. So essentially, when the Cold War started, the best way to chip away at the white liberal power structure, the white Freemasonic pedophilic power structure, would be to use blackmail and to use the insurgency through the black people by inciting them through the different agendas that were now being exposed by them. So Russian intelligence would get stuff and then they would just leak it to different Panther organizations and things like that. They didn't necessarily know where it was coming from. And then what happened was the FBI started to follow the same pattern. This is why J. Edgar Hoover hated Martin Luther King so much, because he knew that Stevenson or Levinson was the one that was writing the speeches, and he was a card-carrying member of the KGB. So all these niggas was basically all communists. Stokely Carmichael was a communist. Angela Davis was a communist. All these niggas was communist Marxists, you understand? And all of the Marxist communists were low-key Freudian eugenicists, you understand what I'm saying? So all these niggas was basically, sipping the Kool-Aid in one point at the other, and they was trying to flip it. Kwame Ture, Stokely Carmichael, allegedly was a CIA agent as well, who was engendered at the same time that Jesse was put in there. And so the modus operandi from that point on, after the 60s, was to not even worry about black leaders, but basically create black cults or black religious situations to keep people caught up in the arts and things like that. So there's no real black political organization in America. There is none. There is no
Nation
black
Islam?
political organization. No. None of it is strictly for original people, because the Nation of Islam got to now share the bill with the Church of Scientology, whatever deal they got. Because remember, they used to have Jim Jones doing lectures with Warif Muhammad. Look that up.
I didn't know
back
that.
in the day.
I didn't know that at all.
Yeah, more look that up. You know what I'm saying? But there's relationships between them and the Nazi Party and all that, just like there's relationship with them and the Moorish Science Temple of America. But they're not going to get into that because that don't benefit them. So what we got to do is understand that the best thing that we could do now is decide who we're going to be, and then establish our own individual estates and trusts. And then from those estates and trusts, basically unify under a common nationality. Even if you don't want to be a Moor, nigga, even if you want to do that, find a country and become a national of that. If that's what you're going to do. Don't just
do that
be
shit
a
through your
Negro, black,
churches
and
at
colored
least. Do that through your
in the United
churches at
States
least.
under the
Some
14th
shit.
Amendment, my dude. Don't do that.
Right.
Even if you want to do, because all these niggas is talking to you about black and going back to Africa and all of that. All these Negroes is here, number one, and number two, ain't not maybe near one of them got a passport from a country other than this place. You understand?
Right.
So let's really keep it real, man. If you're not trying to go, why you telling me to go, Akon? You understand what I'm saying? Like you
How
still
much
got
you getting
residents
paid?
here, my dude.
Right,
like how you got
right.
you got $1 billion credit limit from China? China right now is literally locking up niggas, kicking niggas out of their houses, taking their land in the places that they done paid for. There's a whole generation of illegitimate children that's of Chinese fathers that they're going back to China. And they done left them. There's a whole nother class now. They got a name, to the point they got a name for them. What you think is going to happen in the next 20 years?
They're gonna be slaves.
But see, what this is also is, this is also a backwards genealogy play. This is them trying to graft themselves back into the original man on the low. See, they want to be black. They don't just want the economic status we got. So if they could be black with their own Chinese status, see what I'm saying? Just like if you could be white, but you could be black. Like if I'm on the corner with my pants sagging and this and that, I'm a criminal. But when Jason Timberlake do it, he's fly. You see what I'm saying? When you want it like that, that's where they at now. But what they don't understand is our law is all wise, man. And within 20, 50 years, there ain't going to be no white people left.
On
It
that
ain't.
note,
Their birth rate is zero. Look it up.
yeah, I feel you. On that note, we got to get out of here, my brother. I appreciate it, man. We could do this for 3 hours. You
Then what
already
we going
know.
to do?
You
Then
already
what?
know.
Then we going to have to go with who going to try to be the new white man. So let's try to be ourselves, man.
True that.
And let's try to learn to love instead of hate.
Well,
Thank you for having me on, my brother.
Man.
Thank you for having me on, my brother.
All
we
the time,
appreciate
brother.
you.
It's
What's
always,
your YouTube channel that people can follow?
Islam. You can hit me up at Aseer, the Duke of Tears, on YouTube. You could also, if you want to talk to me or build on terms of consultation or talk about some of the things we built on or whatever, you could do so at houseofl@hotmail.com. And if you want to check out some of the classes and things that I've done over the years, you can check out www.aseerthedukeftears.com, as well as www.gumroad.com, and type Aseer the Duke of Tears in the chat. And lastly, if you go to Facebook, you can hit me up at Aseer Ali Cordoba. And lastly, also check out www.cordobaorganics.com. If you ever have any type of like eczema or whatever, Queen be using these old ancient Moorish recipes. And it's been helping people with eczema, dry patches, dry skin, all that. So definitely thank you guys for having me and supporting.
Thank you so much. And I really would appreciate if you take this video and upload it on yours, because I thought this was a very good interview.
Islam, definitely.
You know, and I really, it's just about spreading the information. I'm searching for more, trying to go forward, and and I agree with you on getting ourselves, our state established, and and engaging financially with our community to come up with an identity and so forth, man. And man,
always economics. That's the way to go, Morris. Let's get it together, man.
Yeah, Powernomics too. And I just I'm really grateful to have you and that you spent the time on this show and with our audience and just the love and passion, man. I've learned a lot.
Thank you, brother.
And I'd really, promote you however I can, man. I just want to get your word out there, and hopefully one day we can get you out there on the big media network so more people can hear the truth and recognize who that fuck
Inshallah. Have a good night, mommy. Thank you, my brother. I really appreciate it, man. Thank you, brothers, for having me on. And again, love to the human families of the planet Earth, all the original people, all of the ancestors that came before. Again, honor to the prophet, honor to everybody. Word. And again, man, long live the empire. Let's make the next 250 years a whole nother paradise just for us.
I heard
just
that.
For us. Imagine that, a world where we just think about what we want and nobody else. We can do it.
Damn right.
And by doing that doesn't mean that we selfish, man. But you got to pay your light bill, or else you'll be in the dark.
True
Say yours
that.
first.
And with that, follow Searching for More on YouTube, and everybody out there follow
Peace,
at
man.
Searching for More on Instagram. I do have a
Peace.
movie on streaming services and in Walmart and Best Buy right now called All Between Us, starring Tiffany Haddish and Brian Hooks, that I executive produced, and directed. So please, ladies and gentlemen, go out and support that. Cannabis company, Evans and Jones Cannabis Mixer. And
I don't know, man, but next time you shoot a movie, man, I better be in it, man. That's all I know. I can do it.
Yeah, peasant.
A peasant. I don't even care, man. Put me up there.
Nah, it's all good.
No, that's beautiful that you did that. And Searching for More, Instagram. Got no Facebook. Took that shit off. But again,
Fuck Zuckerberg.
Huckleberg took the Instagram. I took the Facebook off. But next week we're gonna get into the dichotomy of the black vote and what's being put out there in social media, because I want to go over what's being put out there and help us get some voices from our community, from what we call our community and our people, and also what's being pushed out there to help us navigate and come together and streamline this understanding of who we are and what we are. This is the Hastenog Niggas L. That dude over there is Jamie Jones. Behind the ones and twos is Steph Lowe with the buckshot shorty. And there we go. And we out.